You're listening to PlayStation Unchained.
Hello PlayStation Universe friends, our fellow PlayStation fans, the world over, the nation over, in the UK and the US. Welcome to this special E3 podcast on behalf of your ground team. Myself, Kyle Prawl, and my friends Ernest Lynn.
Yep.
Adam Byrne.
How you doing?
And Will Robinson.
Hey, how you going?
We are here. I'm good, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
We're here in LA. We're covering E3 2015 on behalf of the site you love, on behalf of this PlayStation community, and in conjunction with our fine team at home, who's going to be posting more news, trailers, screenshots, all that juicy stuff than we could ever do, rushing to and from all the cool appointments. But hey, that's the sacrifice we make being here. So Bethesda. That's what we're here to talk about.
It was good. It was good.
Yes, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Well, okay, yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So we want to talk about our reactions to the Bethesda's conference because this is kind of a unique setup this year. It's a unique thing to have a conference like this kicking off on Sunday night before the show, not even before the show proper, before the preliminary proper has even got going. You know, traditionally we look at Monday's round of press conferences as really when the excitement gets into full gear, but I'd say after tonight's show, the excitement is pretty well in full gear. High. Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a few games to cover, right? First on the docket is Doom. So what I want to kind of do now is kind of get the impressions right, and we've been chatting about this for probably the last hour or so, right? We just got back, and we've been burning through our thoughts, but we want to put our reactions out there for you guys listening. We want to hear what you have to say, first of all, on our Twitter feed at psu.com, the full thing written out, in comments on our homepage articles. Tweet at us, message us on Facebook, do whatever you got to do to let us know what you thought of Bethesda's show. But to start with, let's just jump into Doom. I mean, right? Kicked off, lights come down, Doom starts playing. My first thought is this game looks like Rage, and I say that in the sense that Rage, being the post-apocalyptic 2012 first-person shooter that it was.
Was it 2010?
That's not right.
Earlier than that.
Was it 11? 2010 maybe?
It was far before that.
Not 2010, 2011, I think.
Okay, so but Rage was, well, Build.
I mean, it was an id Software game,
right?
So
yeah, Build was revolutionary at the time, at least in his graphical prowess, and that was their big thing with the id Tech engine. And with id Tech 6, that Doom is being built upon. I think
subtitled id Tech 666.
Yeah, absolutely. Clever stuff from our friend Pete Hines. I can see that, right? I can see the vestiges of what made Rage special, at least from a visual standpoint. There's that really, really attractive lens flare coming from, everything from lights on the gun to far off little bloom lights in this space station, in the array, displays and stuff like that. Fire effects, lava effects, smoke effects. The minutia of detail on the weapons in that gameplay video were just phenomenal. I think far and away, visually, it was the best looking game that Bethesda had to show. Gameplay, I wasn't so sure. I'm still putting together my thoughts on gameplay, so I want to pass it to Will. Tell me what you thought of, at least, obviously we didn't play it, it's hard to get a sense of feel, but what did you expect to see when the Doom trailer came up, and, how did you kind of walk away from it having seen that gameplay play out?
Well, I didn't really know what to expect, because, unfortunately, I haven't really ever played Doom, any of the Doom games. I've seen a lot of footage of it, and I've enjoyed watching it, the speed and the chaos and all this stuff. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see, but I didn't know what to expect, because it's just one of those things that you've heard about for so long that you thought it was just kind of, I thought I was going to be disappointed with everyone else. But I wasn't disappointed at all when I saw it, except there's things in it that I can't fully appreciate until I play it. I can't fully critique until I actually get the chance to play it.
What did you want Doom to be when it came up? What was kind of the gameplay or the speed or the feel that having not played any of the Doom games before, what do you come into that demon shooting fest hoping to feel and to see?
Well, I think when you hear about Doom, you think of just kind of massive hordes of demons that come towards you, and you have a big shotgun that you just kind of fight them off. Mm-hmm. And it didn't leave me with that impression too much. off of that. Not at least not for the large numbers of enemies. It was it was a very controlled demo, which obviously that's what they're going to do for a demo on a big show like that.
Right.
But it just seemed like the way the guns didn't seem powerful to me. Just watching it, they could feel very powerful. It got better as it went on when they showed more guns and got to try out new ones But it was.
Well, I think the health section in the later part of the demo was
that
far
was
and away
better,
better than the space station.
But then the other thing too that they talked about a lot was the speed of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And when they kept saying that how fast it is, I was expecting levels of quickness of the first Doom or Unreal Tournament.
The first
kind of
Doom
style.
where you're just like literally zipping through pixelated environments.
They're constantly sprinting while
yeah.
But it didn't. The first part of the demo, I think it was like we had kind of agreed on an initial after watching it live, thinking that they weren't fully sprinting the whole time. Later on, it got faster and faster, and the multiplayer part seemed a little quicker. And then towards the end, in the Hell demo area, he was moving really quickly around the pillar, avoiding the larger guys that were there. So it seemed like I'm wondering if they have a variable speed for that, or if it's just locked in at a certain pace that you can't go above or below.
It's an odd balance to achieve, though. You want that kind of late 90s like frenetic shooting experience, but you also want that kind of meat and like the meat of a gun in your hands, which is hard to achieve though when if you're trying to like sway a gun around, also trying to move like your vision like left or right. It's a difficult balance to achieve. I think it did it by numbers. Mm-hmm. It was very reminiscent of Bulletstorm for me. Guns splitting people in half, kind of not.
Even like the scripted kill animations.
Yeah,
right?
not even.
It
wasn't like you weren't like booting people in like 40 yards. Like a 40-yard field goal or something.
Unfortunately,
unfortunately,
we weren't booting demons over the hills.
Confines of the space station initially, there wouldn't be much room. But for me, it was a good representation of what Doom is, from what I remember. And you've got it like Doom. When did Doom 3 come out? Like that was.
Oh man, 04? Does that sound right? 03, 04?
Yeah, 04, 05, yes.
But no, that was I was thinking about Doom 3 because that's kind of my. Having seen, of course, all the games in the series in some form or another, but never really getting invested in any of them, Doom 3 is kind of the one that I jump to when I think about Doom. And I remember Doom 3, the big thing was you can't have a flashlight and a gun equipped at the same time. You switch between those things. It was a horror game more than anything else, right? It was a de-emphasis on the hardcore action.
It was an identity change, so that's why I was so being like, I am a fan of Doom, so coming into it, I wasn't sure if it was going to take cues from how they evolved it in Doom 3, where it was more atmospheric, it was more kind of... It was more built, it wasn't so much focused around the gameplay, more around the experience, whereas back it was more, frenetic gameplay. It is hard to tell how kind of... At least for the multiplayer portion that I showed at the tail end of the trailer, you can kind of get more of an idea of how it will work, which I think looks good. And still, though, I need to see more. Yeah, I need to get into that beta.
Also, to me,
absolutely.
It seems like it's kind of at an identity crisis right now, is where they want to reboot like the original game in some form, but they're also trying to do it in a current setting where they want that weight and that feeling of new shooters, like basically like a Killzone. Yeah, exactly. Like Killzone has a real weight to the weapons, and you're running around.
A lot of people would say is probably the best representation of
what weighty shooter
in terms of that. But so they're trying to balance like the arcadey comicness kind of quick speed and moving and fighting off a bunch of demons, because that whole notion of it is just absurd and really simple, and it's perfect for that kind of game.
Yeah.
But they're also trying to make it like kind of a serious shooter and trying to incorporate a lot of mechanics that current gamers are familiar with, whatever their age.
Right.
Also, though, as well, if you want, like with Doom, it's a staple of it. Well, maybe it's like a sign of the time back in the early 90s where like you'd have enemies pacing and stuff. But I think if you want to keep that kind of frenetic, powerful gameplay, you have to have enemies constantly coming at you. You can't be moving into an area and then you look off in the distance and you see enemies pacing. You have to go and engage.
Yes.
I want the onslaught.
Yes, that's what I was expecting the whole time.
Exactly.
That was when he looked down in the pit and he just saw all these demons down there, and he just had to jump down and meet them. And then they started kind of coming, but it was, he had to initiate it. He didn't feel like he was fighting them off. He was fighting them.
Because at its core, it literally is as basic as it comes. You have a big-ass gun, undead, hell demons, kill them.
Right.
Simple as video games come. We don't need any narrative-driven experiences. We don't need anything like that. You can put it in, you can shoehorn it in. Probably won't work. It'll come across as just dribble, probably. But yeah, something was off. It's a good start. It's our first proper look at it. You know, we saw a 3-second trailer, and
there were some surprises. You know, we keep talking about you know, the stark difference between how they played single player, which did seem to be slow and measured, and like you said, we keep going back to this analogy of like, it looked like the analog stick was at half tilt. You know what I mean? And it was that, and we're used to seeing demos where they're very carefully panning the camera over the things they want you to see.
And that's what I was wondering about, is that they were purposely being slow in order to show off the
which may very well be, right.
Some of the
it's impossible to know without playing it ourselves.
Right.
But what we can know from watching the final part of that trailer, or close to the final, was Doom Snap Map. Did I get that right? Is it Snap Map?
I think it's Snap Map.
Okay. Yeah, it's one of those things that you hear it a couple times. You're like, Snap Map,
could go either way.
Shark Tank.
yeah.
But that looks awesome. I think it's. I mean, what do you guys think? So I thought it was an excellent creation suite. I was really surprised to see going beyond just hallway weapon placement, pickup placement into things like pathing logic and scripting enemy behavior, scripting enemy appearances. That, to that degree of control, I don't think has ever been seen on console. Because even if you think back to like Unreal Tournament 3 and like the maps and mods you could import onto the PS3, I don't know for sure that those, at least in their early rendition, you could do things with the AI and like actually spawn enemies.
Oh, it seemed like, in terms of map editors and things like that, it seems to be one of the most like newcomer friendly type of editors, but it also has a lot more depth than most of them do in terms of like the AI controls and involving with that kind of stuff. But it's not just like kind of Far Cry maps where it's just an open plane and then you kind of adjust and you just place things. It has pre-constructed hallways and rooms and corridors, which actually takes out a lot of the work that you don't want to do, and you want to get to the fun parts. And you can do that stuff if you want to,
like building a monster arena on a square pit over lava,
and that kind of stuff. And you can do like all explosions and different things, and like what you said, like what they showed at the end of it, where it was this: you get that pickup, and then this big demon appears and he jumps at you, and it's like that's just a cool thing to either to play and just to have it out for other people, or to just like surprise the hell out of your friends when they're like playing your map and
there's going to be
swarmed.
There's going to be some extremely annoying maps born out.
Oh gosh,
it's going to be the most like infuriating. Just
the UI seemed really intuitive, being able to just like place, switch, flip things over. The really cool thing also I thought was having that Bethesda net centralized like network for like sharing it, where you can go onto the PC version and make a map there if you're more comfortable creating there, and then going back onto the console.
Yeah, the cross-platform.
The flexibility is going to matter to a great deal there. I've been thinking about this since the show, and how it's like, all right, so I'll pose the hypothetical question, right? Because they didn't talk about what the true modding support for Doom would be, right? This creation suite exists, but to what extent can people just affect the programming of the game in a way that they could with like Unreal Tournament and stuff back in the day? That's still an unknown. So what I'm wondering is, if you could have one or the other, if you could have a totally open-ended game that's open to that old school, like the game is essentially open source and you do whatever you want with it, or this creation suite that's friendly to both newcomers and vets alike, but is controlled. Which if you only pick one, I'm just curious.
In a personal level or in an industry level?
I mean, I guess industry, like in the broader sense of things.
Industry, then you don't want it open source because you're only calling to a very tiny fraction of the crowd that actually can understand that material and be able to work with it effectively. Well, otherwise, people would just break the game.
That's
like
true.
Literally just brick it, and it wouldn't work anymore. So it's
and that would be really bad.
Yeah.
If someone like created like a mod that was bad enough to really mess up your PC. If you
so it's and then that could also potentially lead to like viruses and stuff like that if people really were malicious enough with an intent to do that. So but
it's one of those things.
Yeah, I think you need the control. It's console. It's not open
That's true.
source.
And I did just divert away from the console conversation.
It's as far as
PC
console
modding conversation.
I think it's as far as consoles will be comfortable to go to.
And it's an encouraging sign because we really don't. I mean, still to this day, we've seen just these sudden little bursts of console modification on these really one-off projects every 4 or 5 years. But now it's like, all right, great, here's another one, and it's encouraging to see at the very least.
Yeah, well, granted, PC can be like obviously far more like custom tailored and stuff. But yeah, games even like the original Quake and stuff, they're still being played. Like it's 16, 17 years longer than that probably.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't have that scale on console, but if you can get a sustainable ecosystem of passionate players, then you're pretty much you're set. You want that. You don't want like Evolve where things peter off within
rather quickly
3 or 4 months.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Doom was probably. I mean, I think we're all kind of the mind that it was a good opening to the show. It had some good, some bad. It was middle of the road, but at the very least, kind of an encouraging start to the.
I would say as a Doom game, it's hard to say yet.
Yeah,
but as a game itself, it looked really good. It
solid.
Had a very good, promising start. As a
Yes.
game itself, but as a Doom game, I'm not sure if it is.
Does anybody want to put out a feeler for a release date?
Well, they said spring 2016.
Spring 2016.
So I mean, I'm guessing like March, April.
Yeah, we were thinking March, but then Uncharted probably could be March, could be February. You never know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It won't come out later. Uncharted won't come out later than 31st of March, I think.
Yeah, I bet we'll know by tomorrow. 24 hours from now, I bet we'll know for sure.
Maybe.
Exciting times.
At the very least, yeah. Yes, it is. It's very exciting times. I'm also of the mind these are exciting times because I am completely stoked for Dishonored 2. I love that it showed up at the conference, and it was kind of one of those givens where you're like, all right, it's time. It's been 3 years since the game came out. Let's see what's next. 2012 in gaming, right? And Dishonored was swamped. So we got a cinematic trailer no true gameplay, but we did, I think, get a really good sense of what this new character, or not a new character, it's Emily Caldwin, the true heir to the throne from the original Dishonored, what she can do as an assassin now, 15 years later, that's a little bit different from what Corvo could do. Now, I think I have probably the most Dishonored experience of us sitting here. Like, I've beaten the game a couple times. I really enjoyed it in the same vein of the newer Deus Ex games, which is really just heralding the tradition of your System Shock and your Bioshock, just the open-ended first-person adventure, right? So I think, again, it's hard to say with a cinematic trailer like this, but seeing Emily's like organic kind of darkness arm as a means of like teleportation, right? And so instead of Corvo's blink, it was like
it operates a lot like a grappling.
It was a tether,
yeah, manifesting itself in interesting ways. A lot of really, and I'm curious to see how this manifests itself in the game, but the transformation of the manner she was moving through, where it starts to dismantle itself, and I'm trying to, I think back to the trailer,
like a specter.
Right, and like the manner is like collapsing on itself. So it's architecturally, it's a really cool thing. At first, I see that happening. I'm like, it reminded me of Portal. Like the facade of your zone is coming down, and you're like, oh shit, we're in a steel warehouse this whole time, right? That was kind of my thought. But in terms of architecture, that city looks to be an interesting departure from Dunwall, but still rooted in that kind of plague infested, the grittier aspects of like a Victorian kind of style. So. Story wise, I'm just kind of curious to see where it goes. I think Dishonored for me was it was more special for its gameplay in that System Shock tradition than it was for a really memorable narrative. To be honest, I couldn't remember, even having played the game a couple times, what Corvo's fate is at the end of the game. And it turns out he is a playable character in the sequel alongside Emily. So I'm like, well, I guess Corvo was fine. You know what I mean? So I'm excited for it. I think I'm probably more excited for it than Doom just because of my experience with the series, but I know you guys aren't as passionate about Dishonored or like it quite as much as myself.
I've always meant to play it.
Sure.
So, like, again, you can get some indication from a pre-rendered trailer, but again, I think it's kind of, in a sense, just to like deviate a slight bit, it stuck out a little bit from the conference as a whole, given it was pre-rendered. You had like this massive Fallout 4 expose where they literally showed everything, and before like in the middle of that, we just knew the release date was 2015. The game was like too far done. Doom as well, but I think since having not played Dishonored, aesthetically I love it. I love the world. I love the kind of the way the characters look. They're kind of stretched a slight bit. It's a stylistic kind of way. It's
slightly caricatured in like a steampunk universe.
Exactly, and
like Victorian London. Those are the first one.
Yeah, steampunk,
crazy.
And you get an idea of the abilities and stuff. But past that and past a possible narrative, that's
Yeah, there's a lot we don't know. I mean, I know that I love the fact that Emily's the protagonist now. She looks like a really cool character. I have a really cool action figure of her now, so that's fun. No. Oh, all right. Well, no. I
got it too.
I'm proud. Yeah. It's already. It's no longer a collector's item even.
I have to switch that sweet brand.
Yeah, but I know, Will, you were not. You weren't really sold on the original game's narrative. So, is Dishonored 2 something that you think you might give a shot, depending on how the critical acclaim turns out, depending on how people feel about it when it finally does come out?
There were more issues than just narrative for me with the first one. I was one of the first people that I know of that was actually excited for it and was highly anticipated the game, because one of the first articles that I ever read about it was only very pre-anything about it, and it was just like the concept.
The game informed a cover story, right? With all the concept art.
And they're talking about this, basically just the idea of the story in general and where the lore was coming in and the universe that it was going to be set in, and I had never heard of it before, and I thought it was going to be amazing. And I saw the trailers, like the trailer that he showed before was a fully CGI trailer and had no gameplay, and it looked kind of like a mix between like Assassin's Creed Mirror's Edge-ish, kind of running in stealth and sneaking in and assassinating and running out, and
the final game did not quite meet that.
Completely different from that, and it almost kind of punished you for trying to be stealthy. For me, it felt like it didn't want you to be stealthy the whole time. It wanted you to kind of forcibly get through certain parts.
At least certain things, yeah.
And it was just something, and it was very much more linear and not as free as I wanted it to be.
Sure.
And and part of the visual style just didn't click with me. Like, the trailers were awesome, but it was the finished game product didn't work for some reason in my head. But
yeah, I'm with Will on that one, that I felt very restricted, more so than I anticipated with the game, and that there was a lot of just frustrating moments or trial and error, and moments where I thought, oh, maybe it would open up or let me take a more aggressive action approach. It really, really punished me for trying that, and basically seemed impossible to go that route. So you were forced to continue on a stealth, no kill sort of route for a lot of the game.
Yeah, it just seemed it was too linear, kind of for what I was expecting it to be. It was too linear for that, and that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way initially. And not that it was a bad game, I just kind of I was led to believe something different, just because of how I received it. But then I just kind of fell off, and that's what I was when I saw this trailer. The trailer looks amazing. Again, the whole universe and the story and all the visuals and the character design and all that stuff looks fantastic. But all it was a CGI trailer, like the last game when I first saw it, and
and you've been jilted before,
it's just like I'm not going to be excited about it. I can appreciate the visuals and all that stuff. Yeah, I can appreciate the idea and the concept, but then the narrative was an issue too. So it's like I don't even have that.
Yeah, the story didn't have you enough to keep you invested and keep you wanting to play when you did come across a challenging part or some place that you got really frustrated with. I got the game at launch. I played several hours of it, but then fell off because I did not understand what was necessarily going on, and didn't care to find out.
Well, thankfully, you guys had a lot more. We all had a lot more to be excited about as Bethesda's conference. I was about to say as Bethesda's conference came to a close, but then it's really like Fallout 4 was just the second half of that conference.
It was a 40-minute one more thing.
So how many dog houses are you going to put on your settlement? Just how many little thrones are you going to give for dog meat?
As many as he
wants. The beautiful German Shepherd.
I'm giving him one of the houses.
Yeah, bring him.
He just gets one of the houses. He gets a garage. He's got his own doggy power armor.
He gets the biggest house in the lot.
Yeah, he's got his own chain gun, tongue operated.
And you tell him to go to that house now.
Yeah, you can tell him to go there.
I mean, so it's hard to. I mean, how do you even start to break down something like that where they show? God, like what was it, 5 or 6 segments of the game, all kind of dedicated to like a different, a different facet, right?
Yeah, I would go as far as say that was possibly one of the best, most robust reveals, or formal reveals of a game I've ever seen.
Yes.
It told you a lot.
Yes.
But like it wasn't like a some movie trailer you see sometimes and they ruin everything. They show you the best parts. They gave us the core mechanics, what you can do. General tone, different areas of where you can be, but it still seems just like a drop in the ocean because the game just seems so
Right. Yeah.
incomprehensibly huge, and it's like, oh, and then there's downtown Boston, and like you can just imagine that's just going to be.
And it's like, yeah, you don't
huge.
even see it from the wasteland initial view when you step out of the vault. It's like,
you don't know all
who knows?
You don't know all the characters that you're going to meet, all the different places to go.
Right. What other companions you have?
Did you guys feel like this game, Fallout 4, seems to have a bit more of a tongue-in-cheek kind of humor than Fallout 3 did? Now, granted, I didn't put the most hours into Fallout 3 as some people, but
I think it's playing on what was picked up by players of Fallout 3. There was little tropes and kind of little memes that came out of Fallout 3, and I think they've recognized that and are kind of playing upon it a little bit more.
No,
it's not. It's not saturating it. It's
and it's certainly
level.
not.
It's the satire and the humor is clearly present in Fallout 3, but it's become more popularized because of people talking about it and generating memes and stuff. So it is there.
The smiling, winking guy.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of humor in it, and the dialogue and all this stuff. A lot of people miss it because they don't talk to all these people or whatever. And that's kind of the thing. So it's like it's not picking up on that, but like just as the game itself, I even told Ernest like right after we saw, I said this is game of the year. I haven't even played it. I know it's game of the year.
But yeah, you'll have about almost 2 months to play
I know
December,
exactly what else is coming out, like what else is going to be arriving and things that are out now, and it's just like if it's what Fallout 3 was and more, which it is by a lot.
Yeah.
And it's more refined, it's more polished, it looks better. It's got so much more to offer. I don't see how it can be beat by what's coming.
So what was the most exciting part of those segments? I mean, if you guys had to pick one section of those little pieces, for me, I'll just to lead off, I'll say it was probably and this is a weird thing to drill down to, but it was the crafting minutia of taking those small objects from the environment, the toys, the toy cars, the little hammers, breaking it down into the components, screws and stuff you'll need to make those weapons. I think so many games have tried to do that where you litter the world with those useless things, the water bottles, the smoking pipes. The Witcher actually comes to mind as a good example of that with The Witcher 3 because there's coal, there's just all these things that eventually do have a purpose. I think The Witcher is great at that, but it's also good to see Fallout doing something really cool. In the same way that, if you're surviving in a post-apocalyptic environment in this wasteland, you're gonna do that. Like that is just logical in a narrative sense. So that was for me a little thing. I mean, even going past the grand design of Fallout Shelter, of the settlement building, the combat improvements. Ernest, what did you really take away as like, holy shit, this is Fallout 4 and I need to have this?
I really did like the crafting and building of the different settlements in your homes. That's along with just as well the plethora of options for customization of everything else in the game. Being able to cater to a player and let them play how they want to, and also make this Fallout 4 experience theirs, I think is definitely one of the key points that is going to really make this game special for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I'm not a massive fan of Fallout, but one thing I liked, which is not even the core game, but they're taking specific trends in the industry currently that aren't the most favorable, say a companion app. Assassin's Creed springs to mind. Nobody really likes it. It's not in the new game, thankfully. And
I didn't even know there was a companion.
You had to open chests and stuff. It was just
not important.
But at least this, this companion app, it serves a purpose. It's not a necessity, but it's a nice purpose. Same with when you had, and that's catering to a specific audience. And then you have, if you go back to Doom, they know their modding history. We're going to put that map editor and stuff in this massive kind of custom tailored experience for you. We're going to give you a companion app, and then even they take this new, you see with all these mobile games like the pay to win mechanic. They bring out Fallout Shelter, was it called?
Yeah.
And I'm
going to check and see if that has finished downloading.
There you go. And then that they seemingly have put out a perfect system for that, where it's not paywall, it's not pay to win, they just seem to be kind of just taking like industry standards these days and just kind of reappropriating them to what the fans want.
Right.
And again, not having been a fan of Fallout much, I haven't really given it a chance, but I will. But just seeing how much detail and care and systems and just organic world building and even narrative it's just interwoven so well, and it just seems like there's just so much care put into it. And like even as a non-fan, not for one of trying, I guess, but not a massive fan of Fallout, it's really just appreciative from even just like being like a fan of video games.
Right.
I can appreciate the love and the care and the passion that goes into something like that.
I mean, I think the prologue is perfectly evident of all that thing you're saying. The organic storytelling, the world building, that care and attention to detail. I mean, what did you think of the prologue, Will? I thought that was, like, as an introduction to the game, we finally get to see a little bit of what the world is like before the bombs fall, and I thought that was a really special moment.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Well, when they had the initial reveal teaser that happened, I was curious to see if that was actually going to be something that was physically playable, or if that was just flashbacks, and it was really cool to see that it was actually something that was physically interactable, and you could be around, and it had the quips and stuff too, where he slammed the door on the guy who came in and got his that was his stats and stuff.
You had Codsworth, character of the year.
Yeah, and it's just like all these kind of things like that, and you just
what did he make for dinner? That's what leaves me hanging. Maybe what did he go into the house?
Probably
to cook?
Don't want to know since it's Fallout, but
Canned food.
Yeah,
canned food.
Spam.
But yeah, it was just
classic staple.
It was such a cool thing to see that, but then also that gives a lot more life to this barren world at the same time, because you have that vision of these areas that you clearly revisit, and you can see what they look like after, and you see the damage
is cool
later,
and then that village,
and then Cogsworth is alive there too still, and he's acting like he's basically thinks that nothing has changed, but it's clearly everything's destroyed around him and there's no one else alive. And but that also thing too, and he's just like when they were trying to transition to that gameplay, he couldn't really do it, and he's like, well, I'm not going to spoil the story, but it's 200 years later and your character's alive. It's like, what?
Spoilers, your baby and your wife are dead.
But it's just like, I didn't spoil anything, but the Dark Brotherhood from Tamriel, they're in this one.
But I was just like, how is that even... Yeah, Ernest and I were talking about that too. It was like,
it's got to be cryogenic, right?
Cryo-freezing or something like that. Yeah. At first I thought it was like, maybe it's his grandchild or great-grandchild or something, and it just happens to look like it.
I thought
but then he talked right away, and it's just like, it's been 200 years. It's like...
Yeah.
Clearly not, but it's...
Odd that if he was cryo-frozen, you know that you could potentially have been asleep for 200 years, and it's weird to think that he was so like unbelieving and so skeptical of that.
Which makes it seem like it isn't that. So
we'll have to see.
I really would be surprised if they did something as obvious as that, I guess. So I mean, I'm considering the narrative of the past games, it's usually a lot more creative like that. But then we'd also talked about how the interesting choice and direction to have a voice actor, the main character, is a very different. They're a very different thing for the Fallout games.
It is, and I think about, we got so much time, even if you go past what Todd Howard was telling us, to just look at the fact that there's a crap load of gameplay here that we're seeing. So looking at those kind of things, I kind of have this takeaway where it's like, there are very clear fundamental changes to the Fallout formula. One of them is your voice-acted character, right? Mm-hmm. Showing your face during dialogue scenes, having it be a back and forth, like a Mass Effect-y or a Walking Dead type conversation. That's a big change. It's a change that I'm not sold on yet. I don't want to say for sure that I don't like it or that I do like it. It's going to be one of those things where I think it'll need a few hours to adjust to the fact that it's no longer like my Gordon Freeman. It's no longer like my silent protagonist in this world. But once I get there, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Well, it's like going from, like we said before, it's like playing Bioshock and then playing Bioshock Infinite.
Yeah, it's
it's the same world, same kind of system, all that stuff, but it's a totally different experience.
On the other side, you have a fundamental change to the gameplay, which is a little more subtler, but now the VAT system involves movement. It's not just stopping time, it's slowing time, so you do have to take time to decide your shots. Mm-hmm. And from what we can tell from just watching Todd play, it looks to be a lot smoother. It looks like first-person combat is actually viable when your VATS isn't up. Yep. And I know that Fallout 3 was not very kind to people who just wanted to play the first-person
nearly
experience.
Impossible to try to shoot without using VATS. Like, it literally was almost impossible to kill anything without using VATS.
So on the whole, I mean, I guess all I'm really saying is that there's nothing negative about anything I saw. It's either, like, don't know yet, or totally on board, totally positive. Including the settlement thing, which was a huge announcement. And I mean, how do you guys think that like some kind of balance is important there? Like maybe, or I guess
It depends.
Well, how big do you want it to be? You know, because we don't want it to maybe overtake what's important about Fallout.
yeah, you don't want to
so
kind of like even.
how full-fledged do you think it should be?
You don't want to stilt whatever like semblance of narrative is there.
Right.
You know, like what the idea is, you could feasibly stay in the settlement for
And just build it out, yeah, depending on how much is there.
yeah, do like a theme park world and just
Well, no,
elaborate contrasts.
I'm done. I'm not
Bridge houses,
finishing
yeah,
it.
tree forts.
but if you wanted to expand it, you'd have to explore to get materials.
right,
So you have to leave. You can't stay in the same spot
But
unless
it's
you
not-
just rebuild the
if
same
you
things over.
yeah,
and
but
over.
yeah, if you leave and remember they were mentioning bandits come and stuff. When you
Right.
leave, is there like I wonder if there's any like notification system? Do they come when you're not there? If you continue on your
I would
Yeah,
imagine if you had other people in your settlement, they
They'd
could
defend
warn
it
you
and
or
stuff. I
something, and
warn
they
you,
could
yeah.
tell you. Otherwise, I would assume that they would just get wrecked if you came back.
yeah, you just
Right,
come back
right.
and it's turned to
Yeah,
This is
I would.
everything you've lost.
That's what I would imagine. That's how it worked. Like if you have on your Pet Boy, like the radio or something can alert you. Or I can't imagine that they would just pop up a notification like
Yeah.
in like Grand Theft Auto, like San
I was just thinking San
Andreas,
Andreas.
Wars.
You get that over a girl, she's
Right.
like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah,
Whip
or
around,
it's just like you get that random thing. Yeah,
And I
so
mean,
it's-
there must be like bandits and stuff because they did show a part during that settlement building
yeah,
where you
the
could
Raiders
put up,
come in. And
yeah, and then
yeah.
you could build turrets and other traps to help protect.
I love that they were totally like the same Raiders from Fallout 3. They totally have like the same gelled spiked hair,
Yep.
the leather strapped
right,
bracelets,
because it's the
investments.
same world. It's the
It
same
is.
time basically.
Yep.
So it's just kind of that's. I mean, that's what's cool. That was the thing that was cool, but also kind of weird for some of it was that a lot of the remodeling they did of the character, the main creatures in the world,
sure.
like Deathclaws are totally redone. They're clearly Deathclaws, but they're very different from what the original
They're
ones
stockier.
were. They're
bulkier,
stockier.
a
They're
little-
big. Like the regular Deathclaw that was shown was basically a legendary Deathclaw in Fallout 3, but
Right.
it was also kind of bigger horns and meatier and just kind of bulkier. Where it's not to me, it's not necessarily as scary as running into one of the other Deathclaws because they were very gaunt and they were skinny with huge talons and skinny, just kind of like.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't know. They seemed more kind of like almost bear-like in terms of like their ferocity or how you would fear it. Not
Kind of
like
looked taken right out of Doom.
So,
Yeah.
Like it was.
yeah, it
In fact,
did.
I think I have
wonder
a
if
Doom
they're-
action figure that looks kind of
Yeah, it really did.
good game to take cues
I
out
wonder if
of.
there's like a story element too with it. That could be
the
about why
bulking?
Like,
why some of the.
it could be regional, too.
Yeah, it could be regional, and it could be like story that that
different levels
different
of like. I mean,
radiation.
if they were theoretically closer to a blast site when it initially fell, the radiation that kind
But
of
it's
turned them into
it's
Deathclaws
still
might-
kind of weird because they're originally were what did they call Jack's chameleons or Jackson's chameleons? They were originally chameleons, is what Deathclaws were before the blast. So like, how many chameleons are populating the United States?
and the,
You don't know.
the
It's-
area near Boston.
And then
They hide so much, you don't know.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I get you. So I mean,
How would you get
that's
an
just
anchor?
kind of an interesting thing too to think about.
Sure.
Is that there how many chameleons in zoos or house pets or something?
I mean, bottom line,
Note to self:
escaped
don't
and
keep
then-
chameleons in case there's nuclear fallout. 'Cause
Because then you're just screwed.
yeah, you're screwed.
our hype levels for Fallout 4 are through the roof, are they not? And like for me, it's like
Definitely Ernest because he pre-ordered it already.
the Pit Boy.
I'm like
The
Ernest,
Pit Boy edition.
Ernest,
Yeah.
get on Twitter and ask people for questions. 1 second. I'm gonna press the pre-order page. Yeah, that is flying off the digital shelves.
It is.
Right.
It is. One thing I really appreciate about how they approached the Fallout section of the conference is it felt very genuine, and for the fans, just really informative. Not too much marketing buzz.
No, it was
buzzwords,
straight to
and
have
just-
Todd up there commenting on those sections was just cutting straight through that BS.
Right.
Yeah.
It
Not
felt
to
very
mention, it was
authentic.
good to see the guy again after last time I think we saw Todd Howard was Skyrim's early marketing campaign. You know what I mean? Like the build up to Skyrim's release. So
That's what I think is great about Bethesda too, from what we saw today, is that they're genuinely fans of their own games
Yeah.
in the same way that we're fans of it, and it's just they want to make games that are fun for them too, not just games that they can have a business for.
Right.
Which is seems it whether or not it's true, it seems like that's a shrinking market now, which is kind of shameful,
Yeah.
but.
And that kind of touches on why this conference felt. I mean, maybe special is not the right word, but certainly different to me. And part of that is, it is an inaugural conference, so Bethesda is still kind of figuring out what its voice is on stage, what its company image is, and how they want to portray their games. But I think for a start, this was as down to earth and refreshing as you can really expect an E3 show in the Dolby Theater to be. So yeah, let's just kind of like to sum up the conference. Like, I kind of want to hear your score out of 10, and then like, you know, as an inaugural conference, how do you think it went for them? Will, go ahead, you start.
I think it was really kind of gave a new breath of life for kind of like the whole feeling for kicking off the week and all this stuff in terms of like from the period of the end of the E3 last year to like kind of the stuff that's been going on and now it's coming back to here. There was a lot of things that happened over the course of the year that just kind of beat down a lot of kind of fans of different games or different companies and stuff, and like this was just like a nice refreshing thing where it's just like, hey, we know what we're doing, we love what we're doing, we know you want to love what we're making, and we want you to love it. So here's what we're doing. Tell us what you think.
Yeah,
and it was just
totally.
it was just a great thing to see that kind of thing. And it was the conference itself was fantastic for the structure, I think, because they opened with Doom, which is something everybody wanted to see right away.
Yeah,
it's explosive. It's
right.
By the way, I have to eat my hat. There was no Elder Scrolls 6 logo to close it out.
You got a card game. You got a card game.
True.
Oh, I don't want that. I don't want Legends.
That was one of the only things. So like they had Doom, and then so how did they did Doom, and then they did Battle Cry, and then they did after that was the card game Elder. No, they did Tamriel. Was it?
I think it went Battle Cry,
Dishonored. Then it was the Elder Scrolls Online, and then they did the card game that was there, and then they did Fallout.
Yeah,
or they did Fallout Shelter and Fallout.
Yes, exactly.
So Doom was amazing to start off of. They did a really good job for that.
Yeah.
Whether or not, like, the game looked really good. Whether or not it is, we don't know yet because we haven't played it. Battle Cry was a weird kind of follow-up because it was just visually going off of Doom to that was kind of rough. Because it wasn't as polished and refined because it's not as... They don't have that big of a team behind it and the funding to go for it, which is understandable. So then that was kind of a slightly lower point going into that, but it was like, they didn't push it, which was nice. That they just said, we're doing this. Yeah. And then they moved on.
Yeah.
And they went to Dishonored, which for me is still kind of the problem, is that the trailer was really awesome, but all it was CGI. And it didn't show anything to make me interested in it besides that. Then I went to Elder Scrolls, which just kind of was a thing where they just
conveniently avoiding talking
kind of
about
refreshing. They're just kind of like, hey, it's here. And then they kind of went on. And then the card game was just, they didn't show anything. So that was just kind of like, why are you talking about this?
And I don't think we'll have to, just for our coverage purposes.
No, but it just, as a full conference type of thing, that was kind of another slightly lower point. But then they ended on Fallout Shelter, which was an amazing surprise and took everyone off guard and was just phenomenal. And then Fallout 4 was even more impressive.
Yeah, it's ready. Yeah,
so I think overall for that kind of spectrum, I would sit confidently at like a 9.5 for their conference. I wouldn't give it a 10 because of a couple of those things. Just because it was, I loved a lot of it, and it was they did a fantastic job in terms of presenting and being true to their fans. So
So where do you fall on the scale, Adam?
I think it was a stroke of genius to have it on a Sunday where you're going to be playing off the enthusiasm of so many people just arriving into LA.
Yep.
Sun is out. You're all going to the Dolby Theatre where like the Academy Awards are, and like all that. And as well, in keeping in line with the whole fan thing, you introduce, like with Fallout, you introduce like a mobile game that is how it should be done. There's no paywall, and then you have companion apps the way it should be done, and all that. So it seemed very much for the fans. You're bringing Doom back, fan favorite, years in the making, looks great. Dishonored, cautiously optimistic, but as we all know, you can't say much about a pre-rendered trailer. You can get snippets of things, but anybody who thinks it's going to look like that or play with like that fluidity, it's not. Yeah. Battlecry, I think they knew themselves. Like they have like a screen interview. One of the guys, it's given probably 2 minutes maximum. Maybe they knew it themselves. It's like just a short. Like,
it needs to be there, but it needs to show.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. Elder Scrolls, I think they just wanted we know that's there as well. Obviously, Fallout's the main attraction. It delivered perfectly, and again for the fans thing that I mentioned earlier, people were decrying the trailer when it first announced. You got like the amount of like downgrades and stuff, even from The Witcher and other like CGI trailers. They come out and then the game doesn't look like that. It was a breath of fresh air to see initially the original Fallout 4 trailer. Warts and all, that's what it would look like effectively. That there it is. There's not going to be any controversy down the line. And this just kind of solidified what it looks like, but it expanded upon it and showed what else will be with it. And that's a lot. It looks fantastic. With that said, there was no The Evil Within 2. Didn't think it would be there. I wanted Shinji Mikami to just in his leather jacket, just stroll on stage. It all comes red, and but that's a story for Nevertheless, I'd say 8 out of 10.
Nice.
Very solid.
And it's special for you, too, because it was your first E3 press conference.
Exactly.
First year, so awesome. Okay. Yeah, so pretty positive all around, and I assume, Ernest, you're kind of in the same boat, right?
Kind of the same boat. I really thought they budgeted their time well.
Yeah.
You know, with giving more time for the bigger titles and
it was
less
also,
time for the smaller ones.
It was also refreshing to have that, though, where it was like, it was a stark contrast to the 2.5 hour really bloated conferences of other guys where it's like, you're seeing like 16 games, 17 games, and here we got to focus on a really core 5 or 6 titles that matter to us. So
Yeah, and I also like that Bethesda's library of games that they have in development right now. I feel like a lot of those games share the same audience that a lot of the players who like, Fallout are going to care about. Say like the Elder Scrolls card game, and that's kind of the problem with like EA's is that there's people who are just not going to care about the sports section,
No, that's true.
So,
yeah.
I will.
Right, there you go, right.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
about.
But like I said previously, really appreciated their like genuine down to earth for the fans attitude. Overall, really good first conference for them. For me, I'd say like 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm right there
No
with you guys.
posturing, just
I think as an inaugural show, it was super refreshing, both from a gameplay demonstration standpoint and a company voice standpoint. I think I've never heard an E3 press conference done in quite the same way as Bethesda's did. Sony's approached it a couple times. Sony is getting better and better at really speaking to fans and stepping down to our level and talk to us as people. But, man, Bethesda really set the standard as far as a personable, friendly, we're in this because we love gaming vibe. And they totally nailed that. It was awesome. Yeah, I'd be right around there. 8.5, 9 out of 10. It was a great show. Of course, when you think about the things that we're excited for E3, a couple of the things that we were really built up for this week, we've now seen, right? And we haven't even gotten to Monday, the preliminary day of press conferences. So with Bethesda knocked out and kind of as like a preview of sort of the things we're seeing this week, take away Bethesda's titles, what next are you most excited for? Ernest.
Yeah. Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain.
That's
really
right.
Really looking forward to seeing that game, getting some hands-on time. It's going to be interesting. The air over in Konami and how people are going to be responding to them and after the whole debacle with Kojima and then Silent Hills. But still, nonetheless, excited to see that game. Star Wars Battlefront, I'm anticipating will have a greater presence since it's coming out later this year. I'd say those are probably my main two right now.
I mean, guys, Star Wars Battlefront. I almost want to call for a moment of silence to just respect the fact that this is a real thing that is going to happen.
It's a real tangible thing that is actually coming out.
Oh man.
I wouldn't say it deserves our respect yet.
Yeah,
but
no, I wouldn't. That's the very important caveat.
Yep. Doesn't deserve our respect yet.
Yay, right?
Cautiously optimistic.
Right? Yeah, that's true. When you consider the release dates of Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, we're in an interesting territory with this one. But we may very well see it on the show floor in a really cool playable state. We're talking about in past years, Battlefield has always had that really awesome competitive stage with the 30, 40 high NPCs set up, just a really epic showdown, commentating. And Battlefront may very well get the same thing. So even beyond what cool stuff EA is going to show us tomorrow, it could really have a sick presence on the show floor.
It's their flagship title.
Yeah.
Everybody's riding on the Star Wars hype train pretty hard at the moment.
This is the year, right?
It's not going to change.
This is the return.
Yeah. I mean,
of the Jedi.
I was just going to say
Yeah.
it's about that time of night. Putting out of the Jedi. Yeah. I mean, beyond Star Wars Battlefront, that's probably that's not number one for me. Kingdom Hearts 3 is always going to be number one for me. I'm deeply down in like number 3, 4, 5 territory at this point. But Mass Effect 4 is, we're all kind of thinking the same thing, and that thing is that we're going to get a really good look at Mass Effect 4 tomorrow. And EA is kind of an oddball because they have they have kind of a strict time limit on their conference because people need to shuttle to Ubisoft like right afterward, and that time limit is usually exactly 60 minutes. And I know
there's a lot to show in that 60 minutes.
there is, and
Like
EA perhaps more than anybody has a catalog that really almost deserves a 2-hour time slot. So I'm curious if they revise that in the future. But yeah, I mean, so for Mass Effect 4, maybe we won't get more than like a 4 or 5 minute trailer, but even that'll we'll rock.
I'm thinking we're gonna
get
we're gonna get a trailer, not too much of a video documentary about like some of the features or like developer commentary or stuff like that. I think like a solid, really intriguing trailer will be shown at the conference tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, that has to be there. What was it last year? It was just a logo, or
last year they had screenshots of the
right?
progress of the game. Basically, they showed
it is time.
Yeah, and then there was also the thing where at last year's conference they said, and then we have another team at BioWare that's working on a project.
Right. So what is that?
Name.
So what is that project? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Star Wars.
yes, it is Star Wars. It is Star Wars. Okay.
It has to be, right?
Okay.
Amy Hennig. Hitting the riding it through. They're gonna, as I say, they're gonna ride the Star Wars train. Alright, it's
a really big, fleshed out Star Wars RPG.
Like if they were, I'd say they'd rather just
amazing.
show Star Wars Battlefront for like an hour tomorrow. I think they have invested so much in that. There's so much hype around it.
It's just Star Wars Battlefront.
Yeah, they just let's just show that. Like they have obviously they have all the sports titles and they have Mirror's Edge Catalyst and they have Mass Effect 4 presumably.
Yeah.
And Battlefront and I'm forgetting 2 or 3 smaller titles.
You know, an easy way to save time when their sports titles might be to because they tend to focus their announcements on the tech and the engine powering those titles. It's always that new thing, like the new EA. It was like Fuel one year, or not Fuel, but Ignite.
I know
Ignite.
Yeah.
Right, and so that might be a way to condense it and say like we have this new tech, this new paradigm that's powering our sports titles. Here's footage of all of them, right? And now let's get on to the big stuff.
The thing is, they measure pretty much by sales, and obviously FIFA and Madden sell.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
But then again,
that's true.
what is E3 for? You know, does the average FIFA player watch E3? Pay attention much to E3?
Most of them no.
I'd hazard a guess and say no. So
the percentage of Mass Effect fans watching E3.
Well, same with Call of Duty. Like Call of Duty fans too. Most of them don't watch these events.
Right. So
we have what is it? A 2 hour, 3 hour tomorrow? Black Ops 3.
Yeah, hands-on multiplayer.
It's massive. But they should focus their efforts on the sequels and stuff that have come in. The reimagining of Battlefront.
Ideally, they would just have, someone come on stage, speak for like 2 minutes about the sports titles, sizzle reel,
we know what
and
they're
then
gonna
move
be.
on.
Somebody's listening to us. They're like, "Fuck you guys! I'm so down with Madden. This is something. Come on."
But we know what it's going to be. More dynamic.
You
more
can't
immersive.
accomplish that much in a year. You really can't.
They obviously would
And they
have
can't
a
mess with
10-year
it too
plan.
much.
Just imagine if they weren't on yearly release schedules, and if they took like 2 or 3 years out in between, and the jumps that they would make, introducing all of them.
That's the thing. They would have a 10-year plan of like,
but they would make
iterative like differences, and they'll add each one. And
but they wouldn't make as much money.
Yeah, fans would be crying for a certain thing, but that could be like 5 years down the development cycle, and that will come in FIFA 20.
But I mean, in terms of just looking at them as purely as games and critiquing them, if they took all the little things that they added on over the years and just split them up into couple year chunks, it would be huge improvements. But
unfortunately,
they don't make as much money.
It sells so much money every year, every late September.
One of those unfortunate situations, but
I mean, as far as the other titles on the show floor, I mean, Deus Ex has my undivided attention.
Yeah.
Hey, undivided. Mankind divided. Yeah.
First Return of the Jedi, and then we have this.
It's going downhill quickly, folks. We have reached the pits with this one. No, I'm stoked for that. I'm really in a Final Fantasy 14 mindset right now. Heaven's Word. The Heaven's Word expansion is out next week. Early access starts this Friday. I have the incredible opportunity to interview Naoki Yoshida this week and talk about Heaven's Word and the development process and all the ways he's turned Square around. So, that's one thing you all, our listeners, can look forward to. That'll be great. But Heaven's Word, Kingdom Hearts 3,
No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky will be sick. Yeah, absolutely. We expect to see No Man's Sky in Sony's booth this week, and man, that's an interesting one where it'll be like, okay, how has that come along?
Evolved. Yeah. What do you actually do? What is your moment to moment kind of gameplay rather than just exploring these?
And what does crafting look like? What does all these systems look like as you head toward the center of the universe? There's still a lot of unanswered questions there. So, and speaking of unanswered questions, I feel like the one kind of hanging over my head is what is going to be Sony's big surprise.
The Last Guardian.
The
happening.
last hope for guardianship.
New Hope. There we go. More Star Wars. No, I think it's coming. I think this is the time. Everybody says
see
it
that every year.
Everybody's, but I haven't been
This
on.
is it, though. This is the.
I haven't been
That's
on.
true.
I haven't been on.
Look
I
at
haven't-
the Irish.
Considering
Look at the Irish. Look at the
considering
Irish.
what has actually transpired over the last several months, this literally has to be. Otherwise, they're burning their entire fan base on this game.
And if it is,
It
like
has
if
to
it's
come
too
out
late
now.
in the day to show it, it would be in their best interest to give a logo
they've denied
say
it too many-
TGS. It's coming.
They've
September.
denied too many times
It has
that
to be
it's,
shown in
that
some
it's
way or
still
form.
being developed. When people
Right.
said that it's not, they said no, it's still in development. They've said that 3 or 4 times over the
It may not
past
have
year.
the same name. It may not be the same
Right.
game at all. It may be completely indistinguishable from the Feathered Beast and the Little Boy.
Yep.
Right, could be something.
But
totally
nevertheless,
different, but it's,
whatever vestige of that is still.
they have.
it's
I mean,
here,
they
it
may
is
not
here.
say give a launch title or anything, but it has to have something, some kind of appearance.
So the other thing has got to be, and this is not so much an unknown, but Project Morpheus.
I was going to say
it's the
Project
time-
Morpheus.
It's the
It's a
time
new
for that
iteration
to
of
break
it.
out.
I would not be surprised if they brought out Project Morpheus. Maybe even renamed it. I think Project
I was just
Morpheus is a
thinking, yeah.
little weird for.
And it always was a code name.
Yeah,
right?
right. It's
On
on
the
Project,
surface.
name, and then maybe like a solid release date,
Oh,
price,
absolutely it has to.
launch titles, something like that. Something more concrete.
That's
for people to
we'll have
know
plenty
about.
of Morpheus coverage
Yeah.
this week. We're seeing
I'm super
Drift,
excited
and
to
we
check
have
out all those
Ark
games.
Survival Evolved. We have what is one by End Dreams?
Oh yeah.
Hold on 1 second. It is
But I mean, we've got that appointment with
the Assembly.
Yeah.
So it's all I mean, it is really is taking the stage, and especially in the aftermath of Oculus' showing a week ago. It's the right time.
Yeah.
Not even a week ago, 3 days ago.
I mean, we're on that cusp of really jumping into that age of VR, and having all these different technologies.
So what's it going to take for you guys to be sold on Morpheus as a thing that you'll go out and buy day one? Maybe that's a stretch. Maybe it won't be day one for anybody. But what do they need to do tomorrow to win you over and say, all right, sure, in the first 6 months I'll get it, or in the first year I'll get it? Like, that's definitely on my shopping list.
Something they didn't do with Vita and have extremely well-supported games designed for that, made by first-party studios.
Oh, snap!
Which is
Well,
something
you're right.
that they have to support it themselves, which they're fully invested in it at this point, more so than they were with Vita.
Yeah.
So they have to do that, and they can't make games. It can't be just a peripheral for other games. It has to be the focus of the games that are coming out for it.
Will they do that? Will they have enough faith in it to do that? Will
They
the
have
install
to,
base be
otherwise
there?
they're
Will they
screwing
take
over
one of their
themselves
flagship
again.
first-party titles, put in that integration, and send it out?
No, whether or not they do,
Right.
that's who knows.
I
But
think
they have to.
They need to care.
it's-
You have Yoshida, who's very involved with it.
Yeah.
Head of the Sony Computer Entertainment.
And he's
World,
very invested, or at least with Mindshare and the things he's working on. He's very,
Right.
very, very tied in with Morpheus. And
Yup.
believes in it. So.
What would sell me on it is a game that I can spend dozens of hours in, and that added technology of VR makes it that much more immersive and enjoyable. One game that I think would be sweet to have Project Morpheus supported would be No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
Oh,
I wouldn't be surprised.
wow.
Think
I
about
really
that.
would not be surprised if
Think
that was
about
one of the
that,
flagship
yeah.
titles. I think that's actually a pretty good bet.
Yeah, because of just, I don't think the level of like graphical prowess is like super demanding.
Right.
Because it's not going. It has.
No,
a
you're right. Though
stylized
it is
look.
already like when you have to think about considerations of how do we achieve that necessary.
Yeah, how do we
resolution to
budget
achieve
our
presence? It's,
Yeah, how do I budget our resources? It doesn't have a ton of polygons. It's a pretty game, and it's because of its stylized and art. Stylized.
Can you imagine what that phone call was like for Hello Games? The guys who are already catapulted to the national stage and indie stardom on just the promise of the game alone. They're at the concerts. They're front and center on the stage. Hey, so we got this Morpheus thing coming down the line.
Yeah.
Looks to be a really good fit for your space game there.
Yeah.
No,
That's good to see if it happens. That Sony are putting.
I think you guys are right on the money.
Yeah.
I think that's
I think it's a good.
That's
bet.
one I would love to see.
that would be a crowd winner for sure. That
And
would
it's
be one
like,
of those things.
even though it's a
just to
gaming
roast.
conference, I think you need to also make it a wide experience. You have those, like people mentioned with the Oculus and stuff, you're going to have those visiting tourist areas and stuff.
Right.
It's not for gamers per se, so you probably wouldn't show it at something like E3, but give it relevance outside of video games. And you saw even what happened with the Wii. Once like the casual audience saw it, and people who would like grandparents and stuff would be playing
Sure.
it, yeah, you can get that relevance, get them into homes. Then you have the core gamers who will jump on top of it when the install base is there, and first-party developers have the faith in the technology. The install base is there; they can make the games for it, and that's what will carry it because you'll have them in homes in the first place. And then there it is.
Yeah, it's got to hit that. It's got to hit that peak, that critical mass when it really just takes off from there.
Yeah.
How they get there and whether they do have the faith and the resources that they will put into it to get it to that point. I think we'll have the answer. I think we'll have the answer by tomorrow.
Yes, to be
I feel
honest.
like they've
Yeah.
proven themselves to be more committed to this
Yeah,
than
definitely.
Vita, which is
They
I'm
are.
still sad
and
about.
they've
but-
learned, and
And
they've
Move,
learned
of
a
course.
few.
And one Move is still supported by it, and they're bringing it involved in a lot of the different things. So
Could be.
I mean, and it's proven to still be supported on PS4, so work with it. But
But yeah, the huge strengths for Project Morpheus, I think, is that they already have that controller, that form of controller input with the PlayStation Move, and the other one is the install base for the hardware that's going to run it, which
Right.
is the PS4.
Yeah.
The huge thing with Oculus is that the specs they have are pretty demanding, I would say,
on the hardware itself.
on the hardware itself
Yeah.
for the PC compared to what the average consumer is buying nowadays, especially with the shift to ultrabooks and tablets.
So
People aren't buying these machines that have enough power to fully support Oculus.
Right. So there's that worry: is Oculus burying itself into a niche before it even gets going?
Exactly.
Whereas, with the install base of PS4 now, I think past 10 million, right?
PS4. Oh, it's 20, 21, I think nearly.
It's
Yeah.
it's huge. Yeah.
It's selling very, very well.
They're set. So,
Yeah.
Morpheus will be the big thing.
I think then
I
they're
don't want
gonna
them to
show.
dedicate too much of the conference to it, though.
No,
They will.
They're going to make a mistake somewhere, probably, if
Yeah.
tradition stands. But
Power Season 2.
I mean, they're going to they're going to show gameplay of Uncharted 4,
Oh, for sure.
It's always
and they're
gonna
going
be
to
a winner,
show
yeah.
Ratchet and Clank. I'm guessing is going to make an appearance.
Yeah.
Gran Turismo
Somewhat.
7. Banking on that. Definitely.
Yeah, Street Fighter 5 probably will show.
And I think they
Shenmue 3.
might. Hold on now. I think they might announce
Oh, and Dark Souls 3 is also
Actually, yeah.
something else too. I
Yeah.
keep forgetting. That's another huge title.
I think they may be in cahoots with Battleborn as well. Advertising deal, kind of like in the
Battleborn,
same,
yeah.
in the same vein as Sony was with Destiny. I think they might be trying to push that. I can't remember where. There's been murmurs of it recently. I can't remember where exactly, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know. Do you think there'll be any Vita presence at
No.
all? There wasn't last
Well,
year.
when you talked
Last year there
about
wasn't.
that necessary investment to get it going, I was
Right.
going to ask. I mean, is there something they could do at this show to start to not? I mean, I'm never going to use the words restore confidence. I'm never going to use the words like flip the table because things don't happen at that pace. But shift the needle.
They'd have to start over.
I think their use of Vita in this conference, if at all, will be in conjunction with the PS4.
Right.
There will not be new game announcements per se. There may be one or two at the very most, but it will mostly they might mention it a good bit, but it will be in relation to remote play and other things that you can do in
It'd be
combination
amazing,
with
but
PS4.
would never happen if they had Vita support for Oculus.
Morpheus.
Morpheus. Thank you.
Retired.
Yes. Yeah, but for Morpheus, if you could just play Vita games or something like that, or they had a game for Morpheus that was
Maybe
Vita compatible.
maybe they could have the simulated.
It's not the
simulated living room that you
I mean,
take
the Vita's
Vita
not
games
powerful
on.
enough for that. I can't
No, that's
sure
the
in any
problem.
way. That's the issue. But
Yeah,
I mean,
they
they
have to
keep
stream
they
it through the
kept
hardware.
saying that the Vita isn't dead. They keep saying that. No, it's not dead. I was like, what is that? Just because you're being kind of talking politics as a company, or
Right.
Is it,
You can't say that in front of investors.
yeah, and it's
No,
just
of
like,
course.
well, they
Yeah.
completely deny it. It's other people that are saying it, and they have to defend themselves. But it's just like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, I think regardless, the answer to that question will be decided by the end of tomorrow. Because if nothing is said, which which is probably the more likely scenario, then the needle doesn't shift at all. It continues to fall, and we're essentially saying, yeah, it is done. Because it's 2015, and a standout exclusive, a standout franchise moving over to Vita wasn't announced. That's kind of it, right?
I think the only thing
Vita is
the peak. This is the cliff.
It's a niche system for indies. Japanese games.
I would expect a price cut.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
there's been rumors even
PS4
$90, which I don't know where that came from.
Yeah,
I heard rumors
that seems out of left
I don't
field.
believe that. I think the lowest it ever go is 100.
It's nice,
probably 150.
Yeah, it's a nice companion. I think it'd probably be lower than 150, but it's a nice companion, and maybe with actual memory card, that'd be nice. But it's a good companion system to have. You know, you have your remote play, and you have
it's a fantastic system.
Yeah,
it's a piece of hardware.
It's alright.
It's
It's a marvel.
It's
It's just I can't see them investing too much first-party talent into games. Third-party developers aren't going to. Third-party publishers aren't going to have faith in it either in that respect. But it serves a purpose, and if they lower the price enough, I think it'll still chug along. It has a purpose, you know.
Well, it started, wasn't it somewhat recently, actually, that it started outselling, like, DSs in Japan and stuff? Like, that wasn't that long ago.
All it takes
like, it
is
eclipsed
one.
them.
It's still released. There's some
it's still,
pretty
like,
high profile.
selling
Some
pretty
pretty
well.
high profile like game releases in Japan.
Yeah,
and all it takes is one or two of them.
It's still doing very well
that's
in
the problem,
Japan
is
and
that
Asia.
its core is it's not moving over here. The only thing I could see them doing is that they have to release another system, like a Vita 2 is the only thing that could actually like come back, which they're not going to, because they're too invested in other...
They're already debuting a different piece of hardware.
Right, they're too invested in that, and they've got
there
other
might be a
things going on,
remodeling
but
of
they're
it,
not.
you know, just remove the back touch functionality.
They've already remodeled it once.
Yeah,
do it again.
do it
You never
again.
know.
And that might be the instigator of a price cut. Is to
exactly,
say,
yeah.
A really cheap. Like
Turn into a Vita Go.
Oh, wow.
God,
that would be something.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, whatever happens at Sony's conference, I mean, all of us here at PSU, us here on the ground floor, the ground team, if you will, in LA, and the boys back home will be covering it all as it happens and providing analysis. So just to give our listeners an idea of the coverage you guys can expect from us tomorrow and through the week, if you watched our E3 coverage last year, you know we're a big fan of the video diaries. We love to do a short snippet of our impressions of all the games we play because there's just so many of them, and we want to give every game its fair due. So we'll be giving you video impressions throughout the week of all the things we're seeing. Written previews will come after that throughout the week as well. And it's going to be a lot. There's a lot of games. Our schedules are booked front to back, solid, which, you know, every year we just pare it back. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's the whole reason we're here, right? So we'll bring you that coverage, both video and written form. We'll bring you post-conference analysis in the same format all throughout tomorrow as we cover those streams and those shows. Stay tuned for the trailers, screenshots, the hot news, the breaking news, the interviews, everything that'll be coming from the team back home. And frankly, the best way to keep up with all this stuff might be through social media. And there is more going on in social media than I could even wrap my head around. So, I mean, what do we want? Twitter...
We've got Twitter, we've got Facebook, we've got Snapchat, we've got Vine, we've got
the Etsy's, we've got the Pinterest.
So Twitter is psu.com, spelled out, .com. Facebook's just PlayStation Universe, as far as I'm aware.
Yep.
Snapchat is PSU, .com. What's the Vine?
Vine is the same as the Twitter. So PSU.com.
And whenever we grab those quick snippets from the show floor, we'll be putting those on Twitter. And
It'll
Facebook
be like
as
you're
well,
there.
So.
It's great.
Yeah, that's our aim. That's our aim to give our viewers, our listeners, our fans back home a glimpse of the things that we're seeing here and what the experience is like. So hopefully we fulfill that for you guys. So. That's kind of signing off on our thoughts on Bethesda and the week ahead. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for choosing PlayStation Universe for even a small part of your E3 coverage throughout the week. We massively, massively appreciate it, and you make it possible for us. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, myself, Kyle. So we'll just sign off now. We'll get some sleep, get rested up for the conferences tomorrow, and just look forward to everything that we'll be bringing you throughout the week. We're really excited for it, as you should be. So. All right. Take care, guys.
See you guys.
Yeah, right.